Hello everybody and welcome to this KFTV talk in association with Hero Productions. I'm Chris Evans, the locations editor for KFTV. Today we have gathered some leading experts to discuss all that Iceland has to offer as a filming location and the logistics of shooting there. Before we start, a few bits of housekeeping. I will moderate a 30-minute discussion with our panelists before we open it up to questions from you, our live audience. If you have a question, please use the Q&A button in Zoom. My colleague Nia Daniels is helping to moderate today's panel. We'll try to get to as many questions as we can. Right, let me introduce you to our panelists. We have US producer Bernadette Caulfield. Over the course of her 30 years in the industry, Bernie has been a part of many acclaimed television shows and films, including the 5-time Golden Globe Award-winning The X-Files and HBO's critically acclaimed fantasy epic Game of Thrones, which filmed in Iceland. She's currently working with Netflix on the forthcoming sci-fi series, The Three-Body Problem. We also have Andrew Gernhardt, US producer and owner of Synthetic Cinema. In a successful producing career spanning nearly 2 decades, Andrew has worked on a variety of projects, mostly through his production company, Synthetic Cinema, including a series of successful horror films for NBC Universal's Chiller Network, the popular Christmas film Wishin' and Hopin' for the Lifetime Network, and the Hallmark Channel movie Love on Iceland. We also have Bowie Balvinson, producer and owner of Hero Productions. Bowie has been in the film and TV industry for more than 20 years, working his way through every role from runner to producer and director. After freelancing for years and running a rental company, he decided to set up production services outfit Hero Productions, working with some major brands including BMW and Samsung on a variety of content. And finally, we have Alfred Gislason, freelance location manager. Alfred has developed a reputation as the premier location manager and production manager in Iceland, with a particular love for and knowledge of the stunning outdoor Icelandic locations. His impressive list of credits include Game of Thrones, Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, and Oblivion. Right, let's kick off with some questions. So can you start by telling me a bit about the current situation in Iceland at the moment in terms of COVID cases and requirements for entering the country? Bowie, do you want to kick us off there?
Yeah. Hi. Well, Iceland is actually one of the safest countries regarding the coronavirus. Our last domestic COVID case was on the 1st of February, I think. And then all the other cases have been caught at the airport from the mandatory COVID test that is made when you arrive to Iceland. And doing a very good job of preventing the virus from entering Iceland and spreading out. And traveling to Iceland regarding production it's been very basic over the pandemic. Production companies like Hero Production, as the other production companies, we have invitation letters for the crew members, as well as forms for the border police to explain why it falls under essential traveling to Iceland for the production, which most of the time is the filming in Iceland is of course the crucial element of the project. And as you know now, it's the mandatory that you have the PCR test, negative PCR test done within 72 hours before traveling to Iceland. So
do you need to quarantine as well, or is that not required?
Usually travelers traveling to Iceland, they are tested at the airport and they need to do the 5-day quarantine after they arrive and then do the second test. And if that's also negative, then they can roam around Iceland as normally. But by going through production companies, we actually have the opportunity of applying for the quarantine exemption. So you arrive in Iceland, you're tested once, you go to the hotel, you wait for your test results. Usually they come within 24 hours. And after that, if the quarantine B application has been approved, then of course, then after the test is done and that's negative, you are allowed to proceed in your production. And by doing that, it's actually saving you these 5 days of, instead of staying in a hotel, you can actually start commencing your production, saving valuable time and money on the production.
Fantastic. So what are the specific requirements then for international productions looking to shoot in the country in terms of safety protocols on set, quarantining, obviously you've mentioned that already, but testing, things like that?
Well, I can say, like, first of all, like over the pandemic, the protocols are depending on each and every production, for example, the foreign production company itself, of their requirements, if they want to have their crew tested once a week or do more tests than usually. But the filming in Iceland, it's a very, we follow the rules and regulations of the Director of Health, which is the amount of people that can work in 50 peoples in groups. Otherwise, the crew is tested usually for temperature when arriving on location. The face masks are mandatory. All safety and sanitary regarding wardrobe and makeup is usually the same as other countries. And we've been using, companies in Iceland have been using like color coding the crew members on each department to keep them accessing areas that they're not allowed to, and then also take very good care of how many people are in each group at the same time.
And Alfred, do you want to come in here in terms of the logistics of filming in Iceland at the moment and finding locations and that kind of thing? Is it a relatively straightforward process?
Yeah, it's quite amazing to see most of famous locations kind of empty those days. But it's pretty easy to work right now here in Iceland without any tourists. It's quite strange.
Yeah, so is it actually easier, if anything, to film in the country during COVID times?
In many things, yeah, of course. People want us. They need business, so it's kind of they have been giving us better prices for hotels and stuff like that. So yeah, it's quite amazing how it works out.
So international productions can potentially come in and shoot at these sort of tourist hotspots without any problems at the moment then?
Yep, that's how it is. It's quite.
And Andrew, have you been to Iceland recently filming? How have you found it shooting in Iceland?
Well, we shot Love in Iceland for Hallmark. Is it 2 years ago now or 1 year ago? I forgot. But it was a tour of Iceland. We hit a lot of the glaciers, the lagoons, and I had a great time there. The locations were very helpful. Alfred and Bowie were great. Hallmark loved the locations, loved having them featured in the movie. As opposed to, a lot of movies we have to fake where we are, they get shot at a different location, but Iceland, we're able to capture the whole thing in all its glory.
Have you filmed in really remote locations there as well? I mean, have the logistics been quite straightforward to get, the cast and crew and production equipment and everything else to the site?
Well, we didn't do anything really too crazy. I think the biggest remote location was day one. We took helicopters to an ice cave, which was a nice surprise for our actors. Day one, right on a helicopter, right into an ice cave in the middle of nowhere. But there's no problems. I expected that day to be awful, but I think we wrapped an hour early after, sending up 2 helicopters and shooting these very complex scenes. But that was probably the furthest from where we had to go, because we weren't doing anything really science fiction or actiony. It was more based on tourist locations within Iceland.
And is local support really important, really key in terms of like the crew and obviously production service providers when shooting in Iceland?
Yeah, I mean, I contacted Bowie and Adi to work on this as production services, and they handled everything. I went to Iceland before on a trip, and when we came back to shoot the movie, I mean, everything was very smooth, and we got great stuff. I really can't complain.
I'm assuming the local knowledge must be vital, though, in terms of when you're filming in these sort of remote locations, or is that the case?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Alfred knows every human, and more than human, on the island of Iceland.
Alfred, at the moment, what are you working on? Have you had a lot of conversations with international producers in terms of when to film in the country, and what are their requests and requirements usually?
Well, yeah, it's all up to NDA at the moment, but yeah, of course there's a lot of questions about filming in Iceland right now, because we are kind of a safe country, green country, according to the COVID thing. So yeah, there's a lot of people asking around how it is here.
And Bowie, in terms of the logistics of shooting and traveling around the country, is there a lot of infrastructure in place around the country, even in the remote locations, in terms of transporting equipment and crew and getting permission to shoot and visas and all those sort of things?
Yeah, definitely. Like Iceland is, of course, like Iceland is, even though we say it's a very small country, the country itself is quite big. The population is small. but the infrastructure, the equipment rental are extremely equipped. Like top of the line is ready, standing by. They have most of the stuff. The rental is called Cook. The transporting around Iceland, it's of course it depends on where you're going. If we need like modified super jeeps to go on top of a glacier, or just a 4x4 cars to go in the highlands, or even just standard transportation like within Icelandic range, like the highways and all that, and the normal places, the tourist places. But everything that is needed to basically go and do production in Iceland, it's very easy to. It's not a far-fetched thing. Our connections with the government, the landowners, the health department, like whatever you need, it's a very simple thing in Iceland. And when we are doing locations, and as you know, like many times, like Andrew knows, like suddenly you want to have another location, maybe even between like company moving from one place to the other, and suddenly someone sees a location and he goes like, can we shoot there? And I can almost guarantee that Alfred knows that person, that landowner, and has his number on the phone, and he knows his history and the family back to the 1800s usually. So that's the positive thing about living in Iceland is we know each other more or less, and that really helps the production of all the logistics about the location. So that's a very easy task.
And Alfred, which are the most popular locations to film in around Iceland, would you say?
Well, the south coast has the best infrastructure. It has it's like a catalog of locations. You drive for 5 minutes, you see totally different landscape. Easy access to the highlands. It has hotels and accommodation and stuff. And so I think the south of the Iceland is production friendly, and yeah, that's why people go there. But you know, I love the East Fjords, the West Fjords, and the North. But unfortunately, there's always the money factor to go to those places. But yeah, that's more or less.
Is it considerably more expensive then to film there? And is there an access issue as well?
It's a traveling time. Everything is based in Iceland. More than we are only 360,000 people living in an island, and more than 200,000 of us live in southwest corner. And so there's a lot less people everywhere around. The towns are not just built for having a big crew, like 200-person crew. So they are mostly want to be close to the airport, bring in the actors in and out. And yeah, so the south and southeast is kind of the main area, which is a little bit of a shame, because the east and the East Fjords and the north and the West Fjords, they are amazing. It's just how it is. They are amazing.
Have any big productions filmed there?
Sorry, what?
Have any big productions actually filmed at the fjords? I mean, is it possible to film there?
Yeah. It's possible to. Everything is possible, but in the end, people look at where is most economy friendly to go, and that's the south. But you know, both Game of Thrones and Hallmark went all over the place, so everything is possible.
Right. And would you say, how have things changed, obviously, in COVID times in terms of shooting in the country? Are productions using smaller teams? They obviously have to pay more money because of the whole COVID protocols in place. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, in a way, of course, we have to follow the rules of the rules and regulations of how many people can actually be in groups at one time. So we need to follow that, and it follows up on you have to use fewer crew most of the time, but usually we are now in 50 people in groups, so that's quite still a large crew that can actually be together. The cost-wise is, of course, there's some added cost, extra sanitations, extra care about the safety for everybody, the medics, the COVID tests. But I still think that is something that we should have had before. Think about more of the sanitation for the crew in general. But in a way, it hasn't affected that much of the filming itself. because it's very out there in the countryside of Iceland. So we always have to think about how small crew we can actually get there, and think about the way we do those procedures. But in a way, it's affected us, but not in a high range of extra costs. It's extra people, but it's mostly the same thing everywhere, where everybody has to think about following the rules.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Bernie, I want to bring you in here in terms of your experience filming in the country. I know obviously you were there for Game of Thrones, so tell me a bit about where you were filming and why you chose Iceland, and the quality of the local crew, the logistics, etc. What was it like filming there?
Well, I came on to Game of Thrones in season 2, and I met with Chris Newman, who is my fellow producer, who's brilliant, and who happens to be married to Anna, his lovely wife, who is Icelandic. So he had loved Iceland for a very long time. And I think during one of our first meetings, he pulls out this picture and he says, I think this is where north of the wall is. And it was a beautiful picture of Iceland. I can't remember where it was, but I said, oh my God, that's brilliant. Let's figure it out. And I went to David and Dan, and they said, well, do you think we can do that? And I said, sure, we can. And then, of course, after we got it approved, it was like, how the hell are we going to do this? You know, it was very easy. We worked with Pegasus as our service company, and Snorri was our producer there. And we just started to, you know, peel back the onion. You know, where did we want to go? Chris was very familiar with Iceland, which certainly helped. And we, you know, for months we had planned it. This was our 3rd country that year, and HBO was very nervous that we were doing yet a 3rd country. And Chris and I just started to figure out, how do we do it? We tried to, number one, narrow down our UK crew and only take who we wanted. We met with our DP, and it was really a team effort of, this is what everybody has to do. And we were all decided we're all going to help. We were on a glacier, which can be very dangerous, but you know, the great thing there is, you know, Bowie and Snorri, they all know who to call. You get mountain climbers with you. They know the terrain. They know what's safe. They tell you, you know, what to look out for, what not to. And there were certain locations where you just go, holy shit, what's, you know, is this safe kind of thing? And then you come back the next day and they've cut in steps for you. And it's just amazing. And you just, you know, I was fortunate enough to have a birthday at one of our first locations, which was right on the glacier. And somebody said, oh, it was your birthday yesterday. We didn't know. And that's so sad. I said, are you kidding? I woke up to the most gorgeous gift I could ever want, looking out to this glacier. And, you know, and we just, everything was just amazing. Every single day was just a gift to us. But, you know, we couldn't have done it, obviously, without the expertise of the service company and the crew. I mean, to me, I just fell in love with that crew. We were all just connected and helped each other, which was, coming from the States, you know, we're very unionized, and you don't touch that, you don't do this. We were all carrying equipment and everything. And the Icelandic crew just, you know, one day somebody might be a gaffer and the next day they're an electrician for a different unit. But you don't get any attitude of, well, I'm a gaffer. So that to me was just so, I just wanted to shoot there all the time, because it was just the best feeling ever. And we shot during the winter. So we were in hotels where we had breakfast, lunch, and dinner together. And so it was just fantastic. You know, we had a lot of fun. It was a lot of hard work. And, you know, our biggest fear was that it wasn't snowing for the first time in, you know, ages. And Chris and I were, oh my God, it hasn't snowed yet. But nobody else was paying attention, because thank God HBO wasn't smart enough to know the light was so limited, and, you know, that our locations were literally with our, you know, ice boots on and stuff like that. So that was great. And Chris and I would just say, there's still no snow, but don't tell anybody. And I remember Chris said, I brought a bag of, you know, fake snow with us. And it's like, that wouldn't have done obviously anything. But on our Tech Scout, we had a major storm, and I don't think it stopped snowing until January of that year. So, you know, Snorri would write to us and say, stop dancing, because Chris and I said we were doing our snow dance. But it was just brilliant, and it just made us want to come back again and again. And some years we did less, some years we did more, but to me it was just one of my most positive experiences filming in a foreign country. And it's really the crew and the people there. And as you say, Bowie, you come across something and go, what about that farm? And, you know, thank God people know who owns it. And it is such a great country because it is almost as if everybody knows each other in this country, which, you know, you can't say about anywhere else. And you know, HBO couldn't have been more ecstatic about, you know, that we actually filmed north of the wall. And the cast loved it because they were cold and they were in their furs and all of this, and it was the perfect way to end that first season. And Chris and I were so happy because this was our little thing that we were going to pull off, and we were able to pull it off. And our crew was fantastic, and our local crew was just, you know, still friends today with many of them. And you know, it's just such a positive experience. You know, there was no attitude, which sometimes we all get when a big company moves into either a small town or something of, oh, here's the Hollywood people and whatever. But it was just, you know, it was really a love fest. I feel like I work for the, you know, for the film commission, but it's really, you know,
so you filmed all over the country, didn't you? I mean, was it easy to sort of, in terms of transport and logistics and infrastructure?
Yeah, again, it's about, we would ask, all right, what do we need? And he'd be, you know, it's the first time I ever heard Super Jeep. I'm like, what's a Super Jeep, you know? And I know in that first year, that snowstorm came in and we were on top of this hill, and I had one of my stunt guys come up and he goes, we've got to get down this hill. And I just looked to my Icelandic, you know, contact, and it's like, are we okay? And he's like, we're okay. And, you know, and then we had actually Icelandic horses with us, and I could see them starting to go down the hill on their own. And it's like, should we be on some of them maybe? And, but we had one of those monster things. I don't even know what it was, but it would sit in you had to climb up into it. And it was, everybody just had a ball because it was the most exciting experience, you know, they had on a film, but perfectly safe. And it's about having those experts that are used to this environment that we're not used to, whether it's a glacier or the heavy snowfall or whatever. And nothing rattles the Icelandic, which I just loved. They're just, you know, oh, we'll figure that out. And you just sit down and you talk and you figure it out. And that is just, you know, it's just a can-do attitude there, which is pervasive, which is great, you know, for filmmaking especially. But no, we really didn't have, I don't remember having any issues. Like I said, if we didn't have, you know, if you were climbing up on your hands and knees one day, the next day there was somehow, you know, a structure there for stairs that the day before wasn't there. And then safety, you know, at the tricky areas, you would have people who knew, you know, that's not safe snow or that's not safe ice. And we're always there constantly reminding you. And you always had somebody to go to, you know, to make sure everybody was fine, because obviously safety is always your main concern. And yeah, just an amazing experience. Every year we went there, I think almost every year in one way or the other, whether it was some aerial footage or, you know, whatever. And everything was always so simple. We just call up and it would happen, you know, and the organization.
Getting permits to shooting places, was that straightforward?
What was that?
Was it straightforward getting permits each time to film in these various locations?
Yes, I would say yes, because I don't remember having to deal with it at all. So yeah, no, it was very straightforward. And if there was any problem, like I said, people, as Bowie says, everybody knows each other there. And the government was very, you know, they wanted filming. We were one of the earlier ones in there. And so they were happy to have us. And it was very, very, very simple.
Fantastic. Andrew, do you want to sort of touch on some of your experiences filming in Iceland as well, in terms of where you shot and why and how it was?
I would have to echo everything Bernie said. The crew was versatile and no complaints whatsoever. And I couldn't get over how fast they were. I mean, I joke about it, but I really think they had 2 cameras up and running in like 7 minutes. Like it was outrageous how fast they are and how professional they are. And, you know, I definitely, I've done a lot of movies, and I think over 40 movies now, and it was one of my number one experiences. You know, and we were the route was as Alfred was saying, we started. I think we were in mostly the Reykjavik area, and then we moved down. Did we go more south or more? Oh, he's off. You're muted.
We went to the southeast, yes.
Okay, southeast.
Yeah.
For the glacier stuff and the waterfall stuff that's supposed to look more remote, because our movie followed a journey of a group of friends, like a Hallmark movie would, and they land in Reykjavik and then they kind of go out and then they kind of come back. The only thing that's a little bit movie-ish was they get to every location in the movie very fast, which doesn't happen in Iceland. You know, you're not at one waterfall and in Reykjavik in 5 minutes. That's 5 hours. So there is a lot of movie time in the movie. But I think it's you know, when I watch the broadcast, it's a very good representation of Iceland.
And Alfred, can you sort of touch on the contrasting landscapes that are on offer in the country? Because obviously you've got the glaciers, everyone knows about those. But what about some of the other scenery that they can shoot at?
In Iceland?
Yeah.
Oof, you can duplicate everything live on Mars, for example. We have been doing that, so you know, there's every. You just have to through now we have Google Photos. You can go and Google, you know, search for Iceland and unique location. We are always getting a new ones that are getting familiar, like the one like Canyon in the northeast that blows everybody's minds last summer. So it's just endless.
I know you have volcanoes as well, obviously, but also what about cityscapes? Do people come and film in Iceland for the cityscapes as well, or is it mostly for the natural scenery?
Oh yeah, we have needed to duplicate Iceland for Chicago and you know, other big cities, which is quite hard because we have really few high buildings and stuff like that. But yeah, we have tried to manage everything like that.
And Bowie, I know one of the sort of the most appealing things about filming in Iceland, apart from the locations, obviously, is the incentive. Can you just talk a bit about the 25% credit in terms of how it works and the process and who it's open to?
Yeah, well, the Icelandic incentives are actually very upfront and basic. It's 25%, and it's of everything that occurs in Iceland, in the Icelandic production. So it's 25%. There are no hidden, like, small tax. There's no, it's absolutely on the table how it works. Everything that goes is 25% off. And it's a very simple thing for the application is you have to fill out the so-called culture test that shows that you are amplifying the Icelandic culture. The budget needs to be upfronted, the script, the story to be able to fill in the culture test. Then everything goes as planned, and that goes onto the ministry, and they approve it. And after the filming is done, it's closing the books, paying all the invoices, returning the books to the government. They will go over it, make sure that everything is being dealt for. And usually it's within it's 3 months that we say for the rebate to come back in. So it's everything can be found on the website filminiceland.is, which has all the information about this. But it's a very simple and easy task. You have to have a local company that is applying with you on that, and it's, I think I will say it couldn't be simpler. It's simple.
Forward process. A final question before we go into questions from the audience. What would you say are the key things? This is for all of you. What would you say the key things that international producers need to know about filming in Iceland? I know you touched on a few things already, but Bernie, perhaps just give a few insights into what they should know before approaching filming there.
Well, I would say one thing is if you have been here once, come back another time, because summer is very different than winter and winter is very different than summer. And it was a whole new world for us when we did film up there in the summer. I don't, everything was so simple, and the big thing would be that hopefully your crew is available, that there's not so many people shooting there, and because you can't do it without local crew is what I really would say. I not can't do it without local crew, but it's much more successful with local crew and more fun too.
And
Andrew, do you recommend that?
My advice would be to just, visit it beforehand so you don't miss anything. I mean, it's a great country. And like Alfred said, you're finding all new things. And I would recommend, if you have producers or scouts from the US, to just kind of check out Iceland first and then, go from there, because they do have professional crews. They do have top-notch equipment. I want to do a summer movie there, as Bernie mentioned. The things are so different. I just want, I've seen these summer photos. I want to do Love in Iceland too, and come back there, for the summer and get a completely different look. And then team up with a local production services producer, because they know everything. I mean, I think Alfred's family owns half the hotels in Iceland. So, he's got an in with everybody. We look at a beautiful hotel. Oh, that's my grandmother's hotel or my father's hotel. He's a great resource.
Okay, let's go to Alfred then. Alfred, Mr. Great Resource, what would you say international producers need to know?
Well, there's so many things. Where to start? Well, with shooting, we are always dealing with nature. That's one of the big things. You're always dealing with, the elements, the weather, there's something, right now we have earthquakes and possible eruption, and there's always the elements. And that's the good thing with having Iceland people with them, because we have a really good access to all the news, what's happening where. So you don't, Icelandic people rarely miss something, road is gone or something. That's, we're always dealing with the elements. That's how it is. Iceland is alive. That's just how it is.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Elements are very important. And Bowie?
I think the main thing is, of course, trust the locals and trust their decisions of how things should actually work out, and what's the best route to make things happen. And also, like Iceland has been always chosen a lot of times for the fairy tale landscape that we have to offer. And so it's the selection of landscapes are endless. So the best thing is always use the local knowledge. Don't just use Google Images, because they don't always tell the true story. So local knowledge is the key thing that is needed for every production in here.
Okay, extending from that then, there's some good questions coming in from the audience. There's one here from Patrick Pinsley, who says, any advice for professional drone operators in terms of rules and the temperatures and severe cold?
Droning in Iceland is a very simple thing. It's but the cold is always an issue, especially wintertime. So keep enough batteries and always have a backup drone. Also, because Iceland is full of magnetic fields, so many times the compasses in the drone, they might go haywire and just flies off. That's happened quite a lot. Otherwise, it's pretty standard. The no-fly zones are, of course, no-fly zones where they're marked for the drones in the operating system. But keep warm, enough batteries, and a backup drone.
Bernie, you mentioned you did some aerial shots for Game of Thrones. What was that like?
That was fantastic. I mean, we went, we had a local pilot, and again, it was brilliant because he knew how to fly. We did some amazing shots right over the glaciers, and it was stunning. We used it right until season 8. We shot it, I think, in season 2 or 3, and never stopped using a lot of our shots like that. Very simple, very professional. Again, very quick, as Andrew said. I often ache for my Icelandic crew. They are fantastic, and they know what they're doing, and they just get it done. And that was exactly the same experience we had with our helicopter. So,
fantastic.
Yeah.
There's another good question that's come through from Lawrence Clark. It's a question for Bowie mainly and Bernie. It says, would you consider the near 24 hours of daylight between May to August to be an incentive for producers with external heavy productions to shoot in Iceland? I.e. daylight equals money, that's what they say.
Yeah, definitely, because they've actually shot a feature film in Iceland, and they used the 24-hour daylight in July, August, and it's a film called Bouquet, where it's actually happening in a there are no humans, everybody disappeared off the planet of the Earth, there are only two persons, and they actually shot it in the middle of the night when there were no persons walking around Reykjavik. So they saved a ton of money on CGI of cutting everyone out. So it's just the question about overtime of doing more than 10 hours a day. I think that would be the main question, actually, about how much money do you have for the crew. But using the twilight and the golden hour in Iceland, it's mind-blowing every single time.
Yep.
Bernie?
Yeah, it's a magical light. It really is just, I guess that's magic hour. That's why they call it magic hour. But yeah, I mean, the only problem is make sure you're in a hotel that has blackout curtains, because the light never goes down. But yeah, and it was completely different for us, because the first few years we were in the winter, where you'd go out onto the glaciers in the dark, wait for the sun to rise, and then shoot as much as you can, and then back in. So for us, it was a whole different experience, but it was great. You could even have a second unit that maybe started a little, started later or whatever. And we laughed that, how do we shoot 24 hours around the clock? And, we couldn't quite work it out, but yeah, no, it's no problem at all. It's just about longer days, which sometimes you need.
I have to add in with Game of Thrones, the very first time we were here, there were only 4 hours of useful daylight, but we had a lot of working lights to light everything up. We practiced, and then we had those 4 hours and really useful shooting time, and then wrapped in darkness again. But there was many people that thought people were crazy.
We were a little crazy, and like I said, thank God HBO didn't realize we only had 4 hours of daylight. But Chris and I were the only ones that really thought about it too much, and our DP, I think everybody else was just along for the ride, and it thank God it all worked out. But yeah, and beautiful light. Those 4 hours were just magical. It was sort of fun to go out in the dark, because the sun would come up, and it was like a present. It just was a present, because it would change every day. Just whether it had snowed or whatever, and it's a gift. It really is.
Amazing.
There's another question here from Alessandro Savioli. He's asking, as for locations in uninhabited places or in cities, can filming be done freely, or are there restrictions on obtaining permits? And in this case, it applies to all productions, or does it depend on whether commercials or documentaries or TV series, etc.?
Oh, Alfred.
Well, land owning in Iceland is really strange. There is a lot of land that is owned by the government, and it's like kind of a national park where you need to get permit from the government. And then private land is also a big part of the country. And sometimes there are 50 to 100 people that own one piece of land people want to shoot at. So it can be really difficult to get permissions for a spot in Iceland, because there is, even if it is uninhabited, there is somebody that owns the land, even it's us, the nation, or then you have to talk to the government or the privately owned.
And then it's actually very good to have people that are location scouts and managers like Alfred and others that actually know which part is like free range actually for filming, and as well who to talk to. Like usually there are a ton of places in Iceland where you can actually go and you can roam around with a very small crew and do your filming. But then again, you come to the Icelandic knowledge of having someone with you that knows if there's a permit needed or who to talk to. And like I said, Alfred would usually just have the number in their phone, or even just remember it out of his head.
Fantastic. There's another question come through here from Michael Moffat at the Production Service Network. He says, the boom of virtual production has the potential to replace large main units for location filming with a very reduced production footprint. The potential cost savings and environmental benefits can tremendously reduce local expenditure and even the need for significant production support. Will our industry forever be changed by this, do you think?
I think in a way, it's a very good thing of being able to do remote filming, of course. and it can save a ton of money on for the crew to fly into Iceland, the accommodation for the crew that is arriving in Iceland. It saves you money, but of course it doesn't give you the same effect of having the director and the DP there on the spot. But this gives you a huge possibility of being able to do international productions without actually going there. So that is a big advantage. And Iceland is kind of very well covered with cellular towers. There's almost phone connection everywhere in Iceland. So that actually has helped us in a lot of our remote filming, where we've had big crew or small crew, but to be able to allow people to come to Iceland without actually coming and doing their creation in Iceland, it's changing the world a bit. But yeah, it's good to be able to do it.
Does anyone else want to come in there in terms of remote filming?
Don't want to do it, but
I prefer
all the fun
location.
taken out of production. So
Yeah, because no one wants to do it. Of course, I totally agree. You rather want to be here.
Okay, great. There's another question that's come through here. Let me just get it up. It's from Guild of War. How do you reach out to local Icelandic talent, particularly casting? This is, I think.
We do have very good talent agencies and casting agencies in Iceland. So the best way is, of course, contact a local production company in Iceland, as they know who to talk to. Many times we have requests in email about they have a small shoot, they want a model, actor, whatever, and many times we just give them the contact and they keep going their way, and then we'll see what happens. But Iceland has a nice database of good actors and models as well. It's easy, well, it used to be easy to fly them in from Europe to Iceland. So, but contact an Icelandic production company to get the details that you need.
There's another question here asking, Bernie, are you considering returning to Iceland to film again soon?
Yeah, I would love to. It's always a possibility. We all loved it. My partners, David and Dan, they love it too. And it wouldn't take much arm bending to come back. We just have to have the right project for it. But yeah, we loved it and anxious to go back, and certainly would return for personal reasons too. So yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and another question here from Lindsay Dyson asking, can you tell us about some of the more unusual requests you've had from overseas producers? And does Iceland have co-production treaties with other countries?
Oh my God, the most unusual request is, I would say, having a casting for sheep. They wanted to select, you have the option of having casting for trained sheep. We don't have that many trained sheep, but that was the request. But we've had a ton of extreme requests of going to places in Iceland, as Iceland is an amazing place, and of course we can offer most of the things. But the most awkward one was the sheep one. Alfred, what's your been?
Well, I guess one time we were asked to import octopussy here to Iceland, one of the big ones. We went all the way to try that, but we got denied. So yeah, we have gotten so many strains. Yeah. I need to make a list of that. I don't have it in my mind right now. I just, yeah.
And what about the second part of the question in terms of co-production treaties with other countries?
Co-production treaties, that is something that I don't have 100% on how that is, but we do have co-production treaties with Europe and the European countries, the Nordic countries. And that is something that I'm not going to answer because I don't have it 100%, but I can send you all the details from the film fund in Iceland.
And what about sort of on the co-production front, working with neighboring countries? Is there a lot of crossover in terms of equipment and crew? I mean, can you potentially bring in people from other countries quite easily if productions need them?
Definitely. That's one of the things that has actually been very easy in Iceland, is to get people in working, no matter where from in the world you are. Equipment-wise, most of the time the equipment is already in Iceland and is available. If it's not available, then it's very easy for the rental to ship them in from Denmark or the UK or what is actually needed. If there are any strange requests, then it's an easy task to locate that and bring that in. But working visas for productions, you don't need a working visa, but depending on the countries, if you need a visa to actually go to the Schengen country or allowed to apply from your own country like India, then you of course you need an invitation and talk to the immigration and go to all that process. But it's a simple thing.
Brilliant. And there's another question here from Barry Harris asking, it sounds as if English is widely spoken across Iceland. Is that the case?
Definitely the case. I think Bernie and Andrew noticed that everybody in the crew spoke English. English is basically it's not supposed to be our second language. It's supposed to be Danish, but I would say English is our second language.
Brilliant. And finally, a question for all of you. How do you see the production landscape changing in the coming months in Iceland and worldwide? Do you want us to take it in turns? Maybe Bernie, do you want us to start?
Our business is always changing, and I think sometimes we don't like a new change, but we all adapt. And COVID times, we're all more COVID producers than film producers at this point, I think, and it's safety of the crew, which is always one of our first concerns. But with this, it goes deeper, and every day you're living, you're walking on eggshells because one person gets sick and your whole show goes down. And so I think we always have a little bit of that in our life, and now COVID certainly has created a bigger daily concern of what's going on and can you shoot the next day. But I think it's exciting times. There's so much product out there. It's a great time for somebody to get into the business, that's for sure. And I just that everybody is so much more willing to, like Game of Thrones, our first year, TV hardly ever went outside of the US for US TV. And now it's almost like, why are you staying in the US? Go out and, environment is just such, on Game of Thrones, our locations were a major character for us. We didn't want to stay just on stage. It made our show just wide open, and it was fun to do so much without visual effects too. But our world is changing, and you have to adapt with it, period. And I think
well,
that's
beyond that though,
all of us.
Yeah, I have to ask though, obviously with COVID having such a dramatic effect on the industry, a lot of series previously would shoot in all over the place, all different locations all over the world, and it was pretty standard, to do that. But do you think that's going to change, and that productions would now perhaps think of just shooting in one location and doubling it for other places more than they would have done before?
Well, I think some places are exploring more, like right now, Andrew said he's got 4 or 5 projects going on in Connecticut, which probably 5 years ago you'd go, Connecticut, nothing there, kind of thing. So I think it's made us explore our own country more for this period of time, because travel is so limited, but yet you can't find a stage in London. So it's still, there's just so much product that it's just busy all over. It's crazy. But no, I think we're just pumping more stuff out now, and we've all learned how to adapt even with COVID. We're one of the safest industries to be in during COVID because of our testing and our precautions. And normally I'd have goggles on and my mask, and so again, it's an adaptable industry that we just figure out how to do it.
Andrew, do you want to come in there?
Yeah, I agree that I think there's such a need for content, that's why there's so much stuff going on. And I personally think it's a good time to travel soon. I feel like there is light at the end of the tunnel. It's not going to be tomorrow, but it might be within the next, year or so. But, I support international productions, and all over the place. I don't think it always has to be just New York and LA.
Yes.
Okay.
Did we lose
Alfred?
and Alfred? I think we did.
I hope it wasn't the volcano.
No,
Have we lost them?
I think so.
I think Bowie and Alfred are gone. they did forewarn us that there was a volcano coming, erupting shortly. So maybe, I'm hoping it's not that, but I'm afraid they've both gone. But so we'll leave it there. But thank you very much, guys. Much appreciated. It's been a really good talk today. Thank you to you guys, and obviously to you watching at home. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks very much for listening. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bernie. Thank you, Andrew.